I am responsible for the deaths of several people. Around 4 years ago, I was a vendor on the darknet. It was a relatively short-lived thing. I was just doing it because I was too lazy to get a job, and at the time, didn't want to settle for the 9-to-5 thing. I wanted to start my own business and use the drug money as a startup. I had been using myself for years. Along with that, I met lots of people into the dealing scene and eventually started dealing myself. I have a lot of anxiety though, so I hated meeting up with people in parking lots, and I definitely didn't want anyone to know where I lived. That's when I read about the Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht being caught. Got obsessed with the idea of it. Got obsessed with learning OPSEC, all with the goal of eventually using my connections to start up my store. Well, after a couple of months I did. I started my store with 3 drugs: ketamine, meth, and some outdoor weed. My buddy was getting for super cheap. All was going good for a few months. Had a couple thousand get stolen in an exit scam, but I had about 25,000 saved at that point, so it didn't ruin my life like a few vendors I knew of. Eventually, I met a local connect that came into town only once a week, but had fucking anything I wanted. Mescaline, LSD, mushrooms, PCP even, and fentanyl. At the time, people weren't really cutting heroin with fentanyl. I mean, I'm sure people did plenty, but it was not nearly as commonplace now. People just did fentanyl, and still do. I put all my addresses into an Excel spreadsheet along with their name, zip code, order, along with the amount. At the time, I was selling some super white powdered mescaline. The fentanyl was also a white powder. Very similar consistency. Long story short, my Excel fucked up, or I fucked up, and about 7 people's mescaline orders were filled in as fentanyl orders. They all went out. I didn't notice and kept doing my thing for a few days. After about 5 days, someone contacted me and told me their friend died from my mescaline. I immediately called bullshit and went to check my order log and scale up how much I had of my mescaline left. Well, I had about 11 grams more than I should have. I still don't know how the fuck it could have happened. I wasn't a user, but I was definitely high off dabs. I went to check my order log on the market to see if anyone had finalized on their purchase, and a couple of them were, but none from a specific day, including the person that messaged me. No one that had purchased mescaline that day had finalized their orders. The market I was on also had a feature to see the user's last activity, and none of them had logged in at least 3 days. Most 2 days. I immediately deactivated my vendor account. I didn't even need confirmation. I knew what happened. I knew I just killed several people. I sold the rest of my drugs, converted my Bitcoin to cash, and moved the fuck away. Didn't speak to anyone for weeks. Found a job in a restaurant, living in a city I always wanted to. I haven't touched drugs since that day. I haven't had anything to do with that life since then. I still think about them every night. I saved their names and Googled them a few days later. I was able to find info on 4 customers that definitely died. 1 customer shared it with a friend. They both died. I don't know why I'm even posting this. Mainly because I have no one to tell, and even if I did, I don't think I could. I spend my days sober, clocking into work. clocking out of work, coming home, playing video games. I'm a complete recluse. People I used to know have distanced themselves immensely, and I know it's because I'm a shell of my former self. I can't help it. Could I even tell a therapist about this? I don't feel like I deserve to be alive. Am I really living anyway? I don't even know anymore. I truly hate my brain damaged sister. I can't believe I am actually typing this out right now. It's making it feel very real. And before you say it, I know. I am probably one of the worst human beings on this planet. Around a year ago, my older sister, 27, a widowed mother of 2 boys, 8 and 5, decided to, against every single warning made, get drunk as shit and wreck her car into a rock embankment outside of our town. She was life-flighted to an ICU, spent weeks in a coma, and awoke in vegetative state. In the past year, she has slowly begun to see some progress. Because of this accident, I was forced to quit my job, leave my friends, move across the country, and back in with my parents to help take care of her and raise my nephews. I love them dearly, but I have never wanted to have kids, especially not forced upon me like this. She has the mind of a child now, argues about silly things, can't cook for herself, cries over everything, can't read, memory loss, partially paralyzed on her right side, has aphasia, and a list of other problems with me as her caregiver. She tells me how happy she is to be alive after such a bad car accident. I want to scream that I wish she would have died. Her boys are a wreck after losing their dad recently and now having a fucked up mom. My parents are spending all of their retirement savings for her treatments. I can see the years getting shaved off my dad and mom from the stress. I don't treat her any differently. I still tell her stories and laugh with her and do my best, but I hate the way I feel when I look at her. Like, did you even think about your boys when you got in your car? She is smiling and completely ignorant to the pain she has caused to our entire family. So, I guess that's it. That's my confession. I have a deep, dark hatred and resentment for someone I love, and I will never let her know. I poked a hole in a condom and purposefully got a girl pregnant to prove I wasn't gay. This was the late 80s, and I was 14 or 15, and things weren't a great time to be a gay teenager. Not that it excuses what I did. I was so afraid of being outed that I started a relationship with my then best friend's sister. My friends were constantly messing with me about not having slept with her and calling me gay. They were just joking, but I took it so seriously that I convinced her sex, and I poked a hole in the condom, hoping to get her pregnant so that I'd have proof. She did end up pregnant, and when I found out the reality of what I did really hit me, she just thought the condom didn't work, and I never told her I did it on purpose. She was forced to go to an alternative school and eventually dropped out to have the baby. Her and her family moved away with the baby, and I never kept in contact with them. I've always felt like a piece of shit for ruining her life and abandoning my kid. I slapped a child in the face and then shoved him off his scooter. I'm 25, so I have a beloved kitty named Pixie. She was around 4 when I found her on the street. She had a rubber band tightened on half her tail. I spent 2 weeks feeding her until she was comfortable enough to let me near her. She didn't trust anyone. I took her in, cleaned her up, and got the dead portion of her tail amputated. After 5 years, she finally warmed up to people, and she became so sweet and friendly. It took her years to be comfortable around strangers. Last month, she was out for her daily stroll around the neighborhood and immediately came back in through the kitty door 20 minutes later. Usually, she is out and about for 2 or 3 hours. She had 2 small holes in her chest and 1 near her butt. She was completely frightened and was crying and meowing. She wouldn't even let me go near her for the first 5 minutes. I knew for certain that she was shot with metal BBs. I take her in my car and start driving to the vet, but took a quick detour around the neighborhood. I was going to take the long way to see if I could find the culprit. Sure enough, I see a kid on a scooter standing on his driveway with a CO2-powered BB gun, aiming in the drainage cavity by the sidewalk. I see cats in there all the time. It was then I knew who the culprit was. I parked the car, got out, walked over to him and said, "I'm telling your parents that you are shooting cats." He replied, "They are pests. They told me I could." The smug little look on his face threw me over the edge. I slapped the fuck out of this brat and swept his legs out from under him and watched him fall flat on his ass. I then picked up his gun and smashed it on the ground. A small part of me wanted to finish him off with a stomach kick for good measure, but I'm 25, so I looked both ways before crossing the street and bolted. As I hopped in my car and sped away, I heard him shrieking in the distance. My kitty was treated and is doing okay. She is a lot more skittish and spends less time outside. Edit. In case you're wondering, I'm pretty sure the cops were called. When I came back, I saw a few strolling around. I was sure I was done for. I've never been in trouble or done anything like this. Anyways, I drove by and literally nothing happened. It's been a month. I think I'm good.